we're ready to fucking go. We're gonna cover Shogun episode 9, and then we're gonna take a 5 minute break after, and then we're gonna go right into episode 1 of the Sympathizer. But we won't talk too much about the Sympathizer now. Let's just go right into Shogun episode 9, titled Crimson Sky. Pretty crazy episode. Any quick thoughts, Damon, before we jump into it? And real quick, we're the Winter Hill Warriors. I'm Chenny Britt. That's obviously my boy Damon. Damon, any quick thoughts before we get into this breakdown?
From the episode title, we thought there was going to be a gigantic battle, but in a way, we did get a Crimson Sky, just not in the way we expected.
That is well said. All right, let's get into it. First scene. Ooh, let's move this. Flashback to Shonai. This is 14 years prior, and we see a pregnant Mariko on the run. She's barely surviving in the winter, and she obviously gets captured because she's very weak in the body at that point. And we learn that it's her third time trying to escape. Her father, remember, Akechi Jinsai, just died, so she's prisoner, and she's married to Buntaro at this point, I think. Because she's tried to escape so many times and just try to kill herself, Alvido ends up meeting with her, and he ends up kind of just showing her religion, and he gives her a Christian name, Maria. And so basically she's saved by religion, and that's how we learn about why Mariko and Alvido have a relationship in the first place, and why she, or how she became a Christian. Thoughts on that?
Yeah, I saw a lot of the same things that you did, Chen. From another perspective, I think this episode grounds us firmly in Mariko's point of view again from the start. They've had a pattern with this over the course of the season, so we're given an inkling that this is probably going to be a Mariko heavy episode. It did not disappoint.
Yeah, that's a good point. We this is the first time that we actually get a glimpse into her backstory and what she needed to be saved from, or how she was saved. It was via religion. So then we move into the start of the episode after we get those iconic Shogun credits, and we see that Blackthorne, Yabu, and Mariko are all on Yabu's ship pulling up to Osaka, and Blackthorne wonders why Mariko is there. It's a little bit sketchy, obviously. What's she there for? What's the reason? And she just kind of deflects, but they all know something is up. Meanwhile, the black ship, which remember is run by the Portuguese, it's in port, and Blackthorne just kind of shits on it. He says the Portuguese are trading overpriced silks for quality Japanese silver. And Yabu comes up and he tells Blackthorne, hey, you got to stay close to me once we pull up to Osaka. So Yabu clearly has a scheme on his mind. And he also wonders if Mariko translated honestly, and she tells him that she has. And we see a closing shot of Yabu saying that he hates fucking Osaka. What did you think about that?
Typical Yabu fashion. There is also a little bit in that translation that he asks Mariko about where Yabu is almost like, did Blackthorne hear what I just said? Because it seemed like he gained a little respect for him when Blackthorne's like, yep, let's ride or die. Like, now's the time. And I think those two have always had that connection between each other. And that's why there is a little bit of respect, even though they do get into plenty of arguments in between. The tension between Blackthorne and Mariko is great. It's a great way to kick it off. You can tell they're both still very, keeping their distance, but struggling to do so at the same time. There is the funny line about the Portuguese trade imbalance. They did not colonize Japan, despite the attempts historically, but they did trade from an economic perspective and take advantage of certain things when they could. So that's pretty accurate.
Yeah, silk for silver. Silk for silver. I don't know why that just stuck with me, but they land and they start approaching Osaka Castle. It's just an eerie fucking place. Maybe it's just the lighting, but it just looks like a dungeon from Mario. But Ishido's men indeed greet them, and we actually see Lord Ono's family walking by, and it's clear that they're being held hostage as well. And Mariko tells Blackthorne that each of the royal family or noble families has a member trapped here because it's just a lot easier for Ishido to use that as leverage to stop them from opposing. And the plan is tomorrow they're going to meet with Ishido, and Yabu tells Blackthorn, look, we're going to propose something to Ishido, and just stick with me. And Blackthorn promises to reward Yabu with Catholic gold. I don't know where the hell he's going to get that Catholic gold. He's probably going to borrow it from the Black Ship, but Yabu has something up his sleeve. And obviously he's going to end up trying to use Blackthorn for some sort of deal. But thoughts on the entrance to Osaka Castle, or the welcoming back to Osaka Castle?
The way Yabu's strutting around with his plan, you get the air of overconfidence right away. And you wonder like what his whole selling pitch is going to be. It's basically just let me do the talking. But anytime we've seen Yabu do most of the talking in this show, disaster has erupted shortly after. So let's not hold our breath on this one. Blackthorn also still does not quite get it between him and Mariko, as he's still trying to spit a little bit of game here and there, and she's giving the cold shoulder. This is business time right now, man. Like, it's time to buckle up. So you can tell something pivotal is definitely on the horizon for everybody.
Yeah, Blackthorn is such a horny bastard. It's crazy. It's his life is in danger, and the last thing he's thinking is just let me get with Mariko again. But as they arrive within the castle walls, we get reintroduced to Lady Kiri and Shizu. So both of them are consorts to Toranaga, and Shizu just had a young son. I say young son. It's like the kid's like fucking 3 months, so very young son. But Mariko reunites with Kiri and Shizu, and Kiri's like, yeah, it's really cramped. You know, a lot of the lords' families and the women and then noblemen, all that. We're all being trapped in here, so we're forced to share very limited space. And Shizu just had a child. This is not the type of place that she should be raising her child. But Kiri's not dumb. Kiri knows that Toranaga must have some sort of plan, right? So Kiri immediately tells Mariko, what's Toranaga's message? And Mariko does indeed deliver a written message for Kiri. We don't know what's written in that message, but Toranaga's got something cooking. Do you agree, Damon?
To send her in early like this, Mariko in like this, you're trying to lay the groundwork for something if you're Toranaga, whether it's trickery, whether it's to rouse the troops and get everybody like a little motivated in this situation. It's a good tiding if you're somebody who doesn't like being held hostage here. And it seems like every episode, the people who are being held at Osaka are a little more stir crazy and a little more aggressive about wanting to get out of here. So I think it's welcome news. And based on how we capped off here, man, I think we are going to have quite a finale on our hands after this episode. Not to spoil anything yet.
Yeah, also the relationship between the various consorts, it's always so fascinating to see if they have kind of a teamwork type of attitude towards it, or if they have any animosity or jealousy amongst each other. It's interesting. Obviously, Kiri and Shizu seem like they get along very well, and they're somewhat protective of each other. But the next morning, I titled this scene Portuguese Breakfast because the Portuguese are just, having a nice little discussion very early in the morning. And we see the other father, Father Delacqua. He gets word from the captain of the Black Ship, Ferreira, that he spotted Blackthorn with Mariko and a bunch of Japanese soldiers. So Ferreira's the one relaying this information of Blackthorn's arrival to Father Delacqua, and Alvido pulls up, and they start kind of talking about what the hell could possibly be going on. And Alvido relays news that Toranaga is surrendering, and he mentions that he saw Hiramatsu commit seppuku. So there's no way that Toranaga is still trying to fight. He's definitely broken. But Delacqua doesn't really believe that. Delacqua thinks that Toranaga's got something up his sleeve for sure. And when the topic of Blackthorn is brought up again, Alvido thinks that Blackthorn is only here to try and survive. He mentions that he was cut loose as Hatamoto, so whatever he's doing here, he's here just trying to cut whatever deal he can. And once again, Delacqua just disagrees. He thinks that Toranaga is just too clever overall. All of this must be a part of his plan, and he tells Alvido and Ferreira that war is coming. So, thoughts on the Portuguese having breakfast.
I think just Portuguese breakfast sandwich is pretty delicious. I would definitely recommend it to anybody who hasn't had one before. But I do think that you can spot a pretty big difference between the members of the Portuguese contingent in this scene. Alvido is the naive, idealistic, more religious than anybody else involved, more pure of heart, if you will, when it comes down to what his mission is and what he's doing in this country. Where Delacqua is caught between two worlds. He's the more pragmatic guy who's concerned with trade, economics, things like that, like the comings and goings of the Black Ship is more in his wheelhouse. So he seems to be a little more on the ball here. He's the seasoned guy. He's the one who's sniffing this one out. What's working on Toranaga's behalf, though, is that they are feeding them conflicting clues. Blackthorn has been cut loose. He is here on his own accord, where on the flip side, Toranaga's plan may not be to really surrender, which is like another clue that's been fed out as well. So they're keeping him guessing just enough to keep a little bit behind the scenes here.
Yeah, you bring up a really good point about Blackthorn being here on his own accord because, like you said, obviously we know from last episode that Toranaga has a plan. But if Blackthorn is in on it, then it looks like and it looks like they're too united, then it's not going to be believable to everyone in Osaka. So now that you mentioned Blackthorn being here on his own accord, it is all part of Toranaga's plan because he has to appear that everything on his end is splintered and they're all kind of just fleeing to do whatever they can to save themselves. Speaking of Blackthorn, him and Yabu prep to go see Lord Ishido. So basically they're going to go and get on their hands and knees and just beg, right? That's basically what's going to happen. Blackthorn isn't really aware of what's going to happen. Yabu's the one that's just kind of leading the charge. So I think it's nighttime at this point. Damon, I honestly rewatched this scene 10 times trying to figure out if it was fucking sunset or nighttime. And I finally realized it was nighttime. But anyways, as they're walking over to Ishido's, they get intercepted by Kiyama. And Kiyama actually just straight up starts talking some shit. Remember that Kiyama is a Christian and he doesn't like Blackthorn just because Blackthorn is a Protestant. And Blackthorn was originally, I think, Kiyama's prisoner. So Kiyama kind of intercepts and just starts talking shit to Blackthorn and Yabu, and then especially Blackthorn. He just tells Blackthorn, "I know you're a fucking pirate," and the Christians are gonna basically chop your nuts off once they really have you in their possession. And Blackthorn counters by saying, like, "Are you really about the religion or the money?" And Kiyama doesn't even try to hide it. He just says, "Look, I'm all about trade. I know all about trade." This was mentioned earlier in the season as well, that Kiyama really is more about the dollars than actual religion. He doesn't really care as much as as he would lead you to believe. So Kiyama reveals that he's more concerned with trade, and they have plenty of pirates already, and pirates like Blackthorn are unwelcome here. And Blackthorn's like, "Wait, I'm not a pirate." So just a really interesting little exchange. I don't know. I just thought it was really interesting, David.
It's always interesting when you see characters come back together who started together at the beginning of the season and then ended up like crossing paths in a more consequential way down the line. Because this guy, Blackthorn, he was dead to rights from episode 1 and 2. However, he slipped through Kiyama's grasp. Ono is the one who you expect to be a little more like steadfast, religious, where Kiyama is the kind of like Delacqua is a little religious, but also likes to make some money off it as well at the same time. So he's always been, if you're going to categorize these regions, one that's more of a dirtbag. But now that you got Ito and Seki in there, I mean, I think he might actually be an upstanding citizen at this point.
Yeah, Kiyama's like one of those evangelical pastors that ride around in fucking private jets, and they're selling out arenas and shit, just making absolute bank in the name of the Lord.
He's on his righteous gemstone bullshit for sure.
yeah, facts. Okay, so they do make it to Oshido's. I said Oshido. Ishido. I'm so fucking tired, but yeah. Anyways, they're in front of Ishido, and all the council regions are there. We see Lady Ochiba there. We also see the heir there as well, and it's basically Yabu begging for their lives. And Yabu apologizes. Well, first he surrenders on behalf of Toranaga, and then he apologizes for the death of the late Taiko's wife, Dayon. And Yabu then says, look, I didn't really know about Toranaga's escape from Osaka in the first place, which is actually true. That actually is true. Toranaga hid that plan from Yabu, I believe. So correct me if I'm wrong in the chat or whatever, but I think Yabu actually isn't lying. But Ishido doesn't care because obviously Jozen died. So it's just one of those things where even if you have plausible deniability, and Yabu wasn't behind Jozen's murder, obviously it was Nagakado. It's just too many things have gone wrong on your watch, so fuck you. That's basically what Ishido says. So Yabu has no choice but to then go to his final card, which is offering Blackthorn as a gift, right? And Blackthorn is valuable because just status-wise, he used to be the Hatamoto for Toranaga, so that's kind of a nice trophy for Ishido to potentially have. And he's a skilled pilot, right? So he brings a lot of value when it comes to anything regarding the sea. But Ishido's just like, yeah, the air's not interested, aka I'm not interested, fuck off. And they have no choice but to return back to where they were sitting. And Yabu is basically like, yep, tried everything I could, we're cooked.
Yabu can't know about Toranaga's plan. He can't possibly, because he would not be able to sell it like this. Like, even if he had an inkling when Mariko got on board at the end of last episode, any notion of that is slipped out the window. He's really, I mean, he's tap dancing right now. He just wants supper. He just wants to get out of there clean. He's just like, you want Blackthorn? He's pretty good with the boat. Just see what'll stick at this point. I mean, I love how like full of respect and like order this whole thing is, because if you tried this in like a modern day military sense or anything, like this would be met with an uproar from everybody in the room. It's almost a patently ridiculous move on Yabu's part based on his track record.
Yeah, he's like, yeah, sorry about Toranaga's escape, and also sorry about your number 2 just getting obliterated with the fucking cannon. I swear, both of those things were not my fault. And he's right, but it just doesn't matter. It's just so funny. Okay, once they get rejected from Ishido, Mariko then pulls up, which is obviously very surprising because why is she here? First off, just in context of time, Toranaga still has his 49 days. We don't know how many days he's into the mourning period, but his time isn't up yet for him to return to Osaka to officially surrender. So it's odd to Ishido and Ochiba that Mariko is here. And this is the first time that Ochiba and Mariko have seen each other in about a decade. So remember, they were childhood friends. Anyways, it's pretty tense when Mariko pulls up, right? There's a lot of emotions between her and Ochiba. Also, side note, Ochiba, the actress who plays her, just her way of communicating with her eyes, it's pretty fucking crazy. But Ochiba said,
like filled with sorrow.
Yeah, her eyes are mesmerizing, and yeah, like you said, filled with sorrow. And then Ishido's just a fuckface. But Ochiba tells Mariko that actually, in honor of the Taiko's wife Dayun's death, there's going to be a poetry competition. You used to be so good at poetry when we were young. You're way better than me. Why don't you choose the first line? And Mariko spits some fucking fire, dude. Fire. While the snow remains, veiled in the haze of cold evening, of leafless branch. Fucking bars. So she spits some fire, and Ishido's like, yeah, it's pretty bleak, but those bars are fire. Like, you actually see Ishido's face. He's like, damn, that was pretty fucking good. But then Mariko drops a bomb. She says, look, I'm not going to be here for the rest of the competition because tomorrow I'm leaving and I'm taking Lady Kiri and Shizu back to Edo to see Toranaga. So lots of stuff happened there. Break it down for us.
I mean, I think that the Mariko Ochiba connection has been one of the strongest and most compelling conflicts in the entire season. And I think the lifeblood of like what's going down here really stems from these two because they're both so pivotal right now. Mariko, we know she likes poetry. We know she's very good with it, very good with words, especially when she had that kind of recited from memory poem with Toranaga last episode. She is employing an entirely opposite strategy from Yabu and Blackthorn, and that is instead of talking out of your ass, actually say something of substance with a plan going in. She is trying to remind everybody that Ishido is up to no good right now and is basically like withholding people. And that's something that I think Ishido has had like plausible deniability for the whole hostage situation. If she can remind everybody of that again, then I think that's like what she's really getting at here.
Yeah, and that is exactly what the next scene is about. Is exactly what Damon was just saying, which is all of this is about plausible deniability. Because if Ishido explicitly says, "Hey, you guys all can't leave," then it could end up causing a lot of revolt throughout the rest of the. Since we're doing House of the Dragon breakdowns, I'm going to say realm. I'm going to use the word realm. And the reason why that is because it would be a clear show of force. By keeping all of the other lords here the way he's doing it, which is like subtle. Like there's obviously a lot of violence behind it. We saw him murder Sugiyama earlier in the season, but by being more subtle with it, then he can at least make it seem like he's not forcing all of them through violence to do it, which would minimize the chance of an uproar. So this is kind of the whole angle that Mariko is playing on through Toranaga. She says, look, Kiri hasn't seen Toranaga in a long time, and Shizu just had a son. Toranaga hasn't had a chance to see him yet. We have to leave. You can't stop me. I'm loyal to my lord. And Ishido and Ochiba are shocked. And when Ishido's like, you just can't leave. You can't leave. There's, you got to get permits and stuff like that. We got to we got to talk to the council. We got to get review. Mariko just says out loud, am I hostage? And Ishido says, well, of course you're not hostage, but you can't leave. So you're not hostage, but you can't leave. What'd you think about that?
He is not very smooth at delivering any of this. I think that there's a chance that his regime at this point would have much more success if he was just a smoother talker and could actually sort things through. Because that is obviously what they're doing. And to the point of like when she's getting defiant about it, one thing that I really like, I believe it might have just happened or might be about to happen, but you see Mariko not only go through the motions here, but she also expresses herself along the way. The whole like second half of the season that we've been witnessing is highlighting how Mariko has basically been living the lives of other people for them. Like she has been serving people, she's been living Buntaro's life with him, but she hasn't really done her own thing to an extent. And she takes ownership of her family name, which we haven't heard. She's been ashamed of the whole season in this scene as well. So this is a really strong scene for her character in general.
Yep. And she ends this defiance with a mic drop. First, she tells Ishido to shut the fuck up when he keeps interrupting her. She says, if you had the manners to let me finish. And everyone, you can almost hear this hush go throughout the rest of the court. But she says, look, I ain't no peasant. I'm the daughter of Akechi Jinsai. My bloodline goes back 1,000 years deep with this samurai shit. We're all warriors. Fuck off. Nobody can stop me. You can't hold me. And Ishido just says, nope, you have to wait. And she doesn't give any response to that. She bows and she walks off. In addition to her quoting her or invoking her father's name, remember her father was the one who played a pivotal role in murdering Ochiba's father, right? I think her father was the one who actually committed the murder, but Toranaga was obviously heavily involved in the scheming of it, in the setup of it. So her saying, I am my daddy's daughter, if that makes any sense, is another slap to the face of Ochiba. So what do you think about Mariko's mic drop?
There's nothing more disrespectful than when someone just walks away after you have the last word, but they don't really agree with you. So she definitely
Yeah.
sent that one home. Really nice connection you made there between both of their fathers' backgrounds, how those are both tied together, and how she's the ownership of her basically taking credit almost for like what her family has done implies that she would stick with them till the end. There's that idea of loyalty that gets brought into question last episode, where she's now extending the loyalty that she's been showing for Toranaga and her clan to showing loyalty for again, like her family line, realizing she is now part of work that was started and now she has to see it through.
Yeah, that's you said something about her taking credit for what her family has done, and that's super interesting to me because uh, for most of the season she's been having to hide or be ashamed of what her father did. But even when she was telling Blackthorn that story, or maybe she wasn't, well, she was telling, but basically Butaro forced her to tell during that terrible, terrible dinner scene. But terrible isn't super awkward, but very well done, obviously. But anyways, she while she was retelling or telling Blackthorn, hey, this is what my father did. It's supposed to be disgraceful, blah blah blah. You could always kind of hint of you get a hint of defiance in her voice, right? Because at the end of the day, we know that Ochiba's father, or we're told as viewers that Ochiba's father was a monster, savage, terrible ruler. So ultimately, Mariko's dad did something that was better for everyone, right? He did what was best for the rest of Japan. So he actually did the right thing, but it was also dishonorable at the same time. And we see that Mariko, she's in some ways proud of her father, but she just can't admit it. And then this is the first time she takes credit for her father's name and everything that he's accomplished, and her family name, and it's in front of everyone. So uh, really, really proud moment for her, but obviously it causes a lot of issues because Yabu is freaking the fuck out after that happens. When they're in private, Yabu was like, "What the hell? Like, when did you come up with that plan?" And he goes, "There's no way you'd be talking that crazy if it wasn't Toranaga putting a battery in your back. So what's Toranaga's plan? What's his plan? Let me in on the plan. I can help out with the plan." And Mariko is just quiet as hell. Doesn't give Yabu shit. And then Yabu's mad, and when he before he leaves, he disses her poetry. He says, her lines were stupid, and then he leaves. Like, he just throws a little like shot at her because he's so mad before he leaves. And Blackthorn then tries to ask her why she's doing all this for Toranaga. Why are you being stubborn? And she just tells Blackthorn, "Mind your own fucking business." So thoughts on that?
You have Yabu and Blackthorn, two guys who Toranaga described as, I believe it was like a short-winged bird last episode,
Yeah,
where
short
they
winged
didn't have a
falcon.
vision in front of them. Yeah. Yabu has zero vision, and that's emphasized down to the point where he's been playing both sides frantically for about, we'll go on 8.5 episodes at this point. So he really doesn't have a clear path he's cut for himself whatsoever. He's just jumping to wherever he can see the best deal for himself. Also, not having these skills in figurative language decipher that Mariko wasn't literally talking about the winter when she was talking about that poem she was reciting. Like, come on, man, those are skills you build in like fourth grade. Um, so I think that he, as a character, is shown as like a bozo during this scene more so than he has in the past, just because he's like lost the plot completely and he's just trying to look out for himself. Blackthorn, though, her response to him is a little more like, "You're an idiot, but I'm still willing to give you another chance." The way that she's interacted with him and the way that he's like not dismissive of her and like is kind of waiting to see what happens rather than just jumping all over it like Yabu is.
Yeah, great points there. The I'm trying to think. This is like probably early in the morning the next day, or it's just at some point the next day. Mariko ends up meeting with her son again, and I looked up what her son's name is. It's Ryuji. Now remember, this is the son that she has with Buntaro, and it's been a while since she's been with her son. They've been gone for 6+ months, so it's been a while, and her son has been spending a lot of time with the Christians, with Kiyama. He's now supposed to marry Kiyama's granddaughter, and he's really proud of being Christian, and he's not proud of being Mariko's son. Basically, he's like, we always have to be ashamed of our past, of our bloodline. I didn't do anything. Like, why am I getting blamed for all of this? I'm tired of being in this family. Just stay. Don't embarrass us, please. Stay. Kiyama wants you to stay. Stay. Be a Christian. Stay. And if you don't, and you embarrass us again, then I'm no longer your son. And Mariko, throughout that entire conversation, just tells her son, "Hey, we've sworn loyalty to Toranaga, so fuck what Kiyama thinks. Nothing else matters. we are loyal to our lord. But we see this fissure between mother and son.
Yeah, man, they sent the kid away to youth group for a few months, and now he hates his family. This is crazy. Uh, Also, not able to spot out the fact that Kiyama is like a duplicitous sort of character who uses Christianity instead of as like a true what you would associate the meaning of the word Christian with. So the kid, like you're saying, like has just been getting fed so much and doesn't really know how to think straight anymore. The fact that it goes back on Mariko, especially given like all the trouble that she's been through lately, makes you feel for her a little bit. But then you also consider the fact that we haven't really heard about this kid at all. So he's been neglected too. Like, his dad, his mom, just not with him for a long chunk of time. So this is just not a great situation. But we see the difference in like what loyalty means again. Like Mariko's definition of loyalty, as we know from last episode, is way different from just like we must do blindly whatever like some so and so says or thinks because it will be dishonorable not to. Like there are nuances to it that I hope this kid figures out.
Yeah, he's just being a little bratty kid. He's around that age, and he's at like the age where you start hating your parents briefly.
Yeah, you pick one and you like switch off every so often.
Yep. All right, we now get into the scene where Mariko really just flashes just how much of a fucking beast she is. But I titled this "Let's Take a Trip." As she promised the day before, she is taking ladies Kiri and Shizu, and she is going back to Edo. And they have a bunch of Toranaga's men. I think these men might have either A, been stationed there in the first place, or B, they came with Yabu and Blackthorn, right? Because Toranaga had to send some of his men to go with Yabu, to go with them to surrender ahead of time. And now these same men can protect Mariko and Lady Shizu and Kiri on their return trip. So these guys are fucking well trained and lethal. They're legit samurai. As they're walking out, obviously Ishido's men step in front, and now we're gonna have what's called what is it? The unstoppable force meets an immovable object, whatever the fuck that saying is. I might be a little bit buzzed right now, so I'm not at full capacity, but basically it's a standoff, and Mariko is really polite about it, but she says, then you leave me no choice, and she just gives her lead samurai the green light to go slash the Shido's men to pieces, and he does. 1-2, quick 2-piece kills him, but he gets an arrow through his neck from an archer from afar, so he dies, and then basically another brawl takes place between more of Ishido's men and Mariko's remaining men, so aka Toranaga's remaining samurai. They do take out a lot of Ishido's men, but they end up like all getting swarmed. Their numbers aren't strong enough, and they all fall, and Mariko is left just with herself. So taking a pause between this scene, what are thoughts you have?
The way that this scene was put together was so calm and beautiful for the amount of like just absolute chaos that ensued afterwards. Like everything is orderly, like people are asking permission to kill guys for Mariko. Like this is great. She doesn't even get touched on the battlefield, which it's like everybody's like dancing around her and is like very mindful not to touch her because she's a lady and is not involved in the conflict. This was grade A stuff from like a fight choreography standpoint. She knows what's going to happen the whole time. The real gamble she's taking is that she wants to see what other people react to when she makes this move. Like, are they going to come to their senses and realize the need to oppose Ishido, or are they going to provide some resistance because otherwise they're going to be in deep shit for the foreseeable future? Because if you let this happen, if you let them kill all these guys and withhold her from going somewhere and she's a lady, that's a pretty bad look, I would say.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that because I forgot to mention it. But above on the castle walls are Blackthorn, Yabu, all the council of regents, all the noblemen, noble women, the guards. Everyone's watching because this is the talk of the castle, right? Like this lady is going to go against Ishido directly, and she could possibly die. And this one, Damon came up with the title. Mariko sends it when he made this part of the presentation, and she does fucking send it because she just pulls out that, I forget what that weapon is called, but it's like the long spear, and she doesn't have any more of her samurai left. Well, fuck it, she'll just fight on her own, and of course she loses, right? She's not gonna win against all of these dudes, but these dudes also can't outright kill her, so they just kind of block her blows and then just kind of bully her down to where she's no longer a threat, but she also just can't move. So they kind of just like smother her in place. And, technically she can't perform her duty to her lord. So she can say, hey, well, I'm going to kill myself because I can't perform my duty to my lord. And Ochiba is now watching this as well. So everyone's watching her, and she says, she pledges to take her life at sunset. And not only that, she says, Lord Kiyama, will you be my second? Now, there's a lot of religious connotations to this because suicide is bad in Christianity, I believe. And now she's asking Kiyama to be her second. And Kiyama's like, dude, why? Like, come on, just chill, Both Kiyama and Ono are like, look, our hands are tied, but chill. Like, you don't have to go this far. But Mariko throws down throws down the gauntlet. Is that the saying?
Yeah, you got it.
Throws down the gauntlet. Dude, I am fucking hanging on by a thread. You got to take it from here. What you think about that?
She does throw down the gauntlet in a sense here. It rattles the lords. Lady Ochiba is moved towards the end. If you look at the beginning, Lady Ochiba starts out the scene with like a jacket over her head, almost as if she's like, obviously not a jacket, but, some kind of overcoat to stay in the backdrop a little bit, where she finally takes it off and takes in what's going on below towards the end of it. Mariko claiming that she wants to take her own life in the way that she had been hinting out through the whole season does make sense from a character perspective, because she's been asking for this, or she's at least been wanting her death to be constructive for, honor and fate and like the good path that will be paved here. So this is a way for her to really put an exclamation point on this. Like, it feels very similar to the sacrifice we saw at the end of last episode, right?
Yeah.
We saw that similar kind of, I would say, similar gesture go down, but it's a little more serious than that, in a way to strengthen Toranaga's cause, or at least turn sentiment away from Ishido. Implicating Kiyama as the second was very smart, because she's involving people with more power, who have more control. And Kiyama is starting to little 50-50 on Ishido at this point too. Even though he is a kind of a stiff that just takes orders, he's regretting his choices a little bit. So this might pull him more towards there. Ochiba also stays silent the whole time. It's as if she has like surrendered the power she had just a couple episodes ago to Ishido. Like, she gave Ishido the power she was using, and Ishido is making less use of it. I don't know if that really makes sense, but it was kind of what Lady Dalian warned against.
Yeah, exactly. Ishido is the type. He's like a coach who has all the talent in the world and is just winning on talent, but has no idea how to fucking coach his team. It could be way better. I won't say which NBA coach I'm thinking about because this isn't supposed to be that sort of a hating environment. But yeah, David, to your point, she's making a scene, right? And all this is so crazy because it's just one lady wants to return and bring her lord's consorts and her lord's son, newborn son, to go see the Lord before said Lord walks in and surrenders, right? It's on the surface, it's not that crazy. So for all of this to happen, for so much blood to be spilled just because she tries to walk out, and then for you to say, hey, you guys aren't technically hostages of me, but when one lady tried to walk out, fucking 30 dudes just died, right? Just in front of everyone, it makes such a scene that now I think the gravity of the situation, like you said, is weighing on everyone, and they're realizing, holy fuck, that could have been us. And that is exactly what they discuss in before sunset. And it's the Council of Regents, it's Ishido, it's Ochiba, and a lot of them are like, there's no way she's gonna kill herself. That's crazy. And Ochiba's like, look, you guys don't know Mariko. She's gonna kill herself. And either way, you guys, Ishido, you're fucked, because if you let her kill herself, then that's gonna look so bad on your part. And she's from a disgraced family and she was forbidden from killing herself, this would be a way for her to go and kind of just we'd kind of be not only letting her off the hook when it comes to honor with her family, but she's going to be looked upon as a martyr for the rest of the lords throughout the realm. So this could be something that is used to paint you in a really bad light and as someone who's ruthless, and it's going to conflict with religion, right? It's going to look like you're pushing this Christian woman to commit suicide, which is a sin, I believe. So that's what happens if she kills herself. But if she doesn't kill herself and you let her walk, then everyone else is going to think they can walk, and you're going to look, you're going to look kind of weak and stuff. And she can't say this like outright necessarily, because obviously Kiyama is also there, and Kiyama's technically a bit of a hostage, but there's a bunch of other lords and family members that are hostage as well. So he would risk all of the masking to leave. So, I gotta say, as this is all happening, Seki is hilarious because he's the only one who's just like, isn't this all so dramatic? Like, why does she have to kill herself? It's just so funny. He's like, he has the reactions that I would have if I was in this society. But anyways, what do you think about Ochiba kind of breaking down the game for all of them?
Yeah, Seki is moving like a guy who all his life just wanted to be elected to office, and then gets in there and is like, well, this is what government's like? Like, yeah, man, this is what you signed up for, dude. Ochiba remains smarter than all these guys put together because she's the only one who knows Mariko well enough to make this prediction. Those lines she was dropping about this being Mariko's revenge on fate, revenge on all of us, felt pretty spot on, and nice way to tie into that fate concept the whole season has been pushing. So I think if anything, it just kind of asserted once again, these guys don't really know what they're doing. And it's like Ochiba's like sly comments just saving them from like the edge of a cliff, because they were really close just to not taking any action on this whatsoever.
Yeah, I also like the shot of what's his name, Lord Ito, the one who just wanted to be an actor, and he's just forced to now serve in a very dangerous position, I might add, because if Toranaga wins this thing, he could just chop his head off.
Yeah, I mean, he look every time the camera goes to him, he just looks like so far in over his head, it's crazy. Like he's as stiff as a board the entire scene.
Oh, yeah, all he wanted to do was just act in a few shows and pursue his passion. And now he's at risk of getting his head chopped off by Toranaga's troops. But
it's kind of an analogy for like Ronald Reagan, in a way.
Indeed. Okay, so there's still a little bit of time to kill before sunset, and we kind of just see what everyone is doing. So we first see the other ladies that are noble ladies, I should say. I don't know what else to call them, noble women or something. I don't know, but got word spreading throughout the castle of what Mariko's pledge just was, and what she just said she would do. And what ends up happening is the other women in the castle are like, hey, we want to go be there when Mariko, does this. Like, we want to be there and watch. I don't know why this thing isn't loading up, so I'm just gonna narrate through it, or I'm just gonna jump to the next one. But basically, they all say, hey, we're gonna be there at sunset to kind of be there for her, be present for her. I don't want to say support her suicide, because that sounds pretty bad, but it would be pretty bad at the same time for her to commit seppuku with no one there. So I guess you'd want people there if that's going to happen, if that makes sense. But while this is happening, Ochiba wants to speak with Mariko one-on-one. So she ends up using Blackthorne as kind of a decoy. And this kind of goes back to what you were saying, Damon, which is now Ochiba has sort of handed a lot of her power over to Ishido, because they're engaged to be married now at this point as well. So like Ochiba is kind of going underground to communicate with Mariko, maybe because she doesn't want Ishido to know, right? So she pretends like she wants to talk to Blackthorne, and then Mariko obviously has to be there to translate. And also, I should say, Ochiba doesn't pretend that she needs to talk to Blackthorne. She says that the heir wants to see Blackthorne, when it's all just really a front for her and Mariko to meet. They kind of get into this war of words where Ochiba's saying, hey, you're wrong, I'm right. And Mariko's like, nope, you're wrong, you're being childish, I'm right. Nope, you're childish. It's an awesome scene, because the way they act it out, it's so subtle. it's just really fucking good. But obviously, they both stay on their own sides. Mariko's going to stay loyal to Toranaga. Ochiba's not going to waver. Break all of that down for me.
Everything you said, plus the fact that they're sending this home with Blackthorn as a third party. Sometimes when Blackthorn is involved in a scene and everything is just on such a higher level that he can comprehend because of the language barrier or because of his lower emotional intelligence, take your pick. I feel like I'm right there with him. Like, oh, like I'm taking this in with you, man. Like this is what we're adjusting to right now, because the way that he was used 2 times now as like a conduit of language, firstly in the Willow world with Kiku, where Kiku's like, I want you to translate directly to him, like everything I'm saying as if it's coming from you. And now Ochiba has Mariko translating essentially the parts of Mariko's life story that she's left out directly to Blackthorn. So Blackthorn gets the full perspective. I thought that was pretty cool because he's hearing everything and the points getting sent home with us doubly. These two almost had like a rivalry when they were younger. Like it felt like it might be more one-sided. Like Ochiba was like, yeah, you were always like so perfect. But we haven't really seen that analyzed a whole lot before. This is the combo we've been waiting for, right? Ochiba doesn't get it fully in the end because she's aligned in a different manner, but we're going to see more about that in the next half of the combo.
Yeah. Frenemies. Blackthorn tries to make one last ditch effort to convince Mariko not to kill herself. He's just like, dude, why are you doing this? Once again, why are you doing this? And she's steadfast in her belief, and she's gonna do what she's gonna do. And they share this nice little moment, but it doesn't matter. And I think this is a moment where Blackthorn kind of sees Mariko's true resolve, right? It's one thing for her to be steadfast in other things, but she pledged to kill herself, and she's gonna go through with it, and she refuses to be talked out of it. And maybe it's part of Toranaga's plan, maybe it's not. Blackthorn doesn't know this at this point, but the fact that this woman is willing to go the ultimate length to show that she means what she says, and she has a purpose is fucking wild. And this is the first time Blackthorn kind of really processes it. Any quick thoughts on that?
Yeah, is it really an extension of the conversation that she just had with Ochiba, where there's the whole line about, a flower is only a flower because it's temporary, in a sense, where like she's living the life that she was meant to live and she wants to. Where Blackthorn's preaching practicality, Mariko maintains this is my purpose. I'm continuing my dad's work on this mission. I'm going to honor Toranaga and him both at once in this final gesture. And I really did feel something during that final handhold, though, between those two. Like, I didn't expect this chemistry to remain there, but they've done a great job with it.
Yeah. Meanwhile, Yabu, I titled this Stay Scheming because Yabu has cut another deal with Lord Ishido. And his deal with Ishido was fairly simple. It was just, hey, I'll just work for you. I'll do whatever you want. Just don't kill me. Yabu is hilarious because he's not afraid to die necessarily. He was going to kill himself in the first episode when he was drowning, but it's just odd. Then in these moments, it's almost like, whatever, just don't kill me. Just don't kill me. But Ishido accepts the deal, but there's something that he wants in return. And we don't know at this point what Ishido's request is, but obviously like you can infer. Meanwhile, Blackthorn is just kind of processing everything that's going on. He must be having just the wildest trip to Asia fucking ever, just holy shit, just looking left and right, just seeing motherfuckers commit seppuku, cannon shots. He's having sex with Mariko. He's now the Hatamoto. Just what a crazy 8 months for Blackthorn.
He's just trying to be the first Englishman across the channel, and this is where he gets the Stay Scheming line. I like that maybe a little Rick Ross reference in there tied to Yabu's actions. We'll see. So we'll see what goes down there. Two very different kinds of like plotting and scheming going on here, where Blackthorn's more like this is life hitting me all at once. And like, I think I still really like Mariko and she's going to off herself. Like, this is going to be a rough one. Like, I don't really know how to navigate this. Like, what do I do? Where Yabu's more like, so there is still a way I can get out of this. You're telling me, right? Like, this is a pretty interesting way to frame a contrast between two guys who used to have a lot more in common.
Yeah, definitely agree with that. I love that Rick Ross comparison. That's that's ruthless. One last confession for Mariko before she goes and takes her own life, and she meets with Alvito, and they share this nice moment. And as you said earlier, David, Alvito genuinely seems like a good guy who believes in the cause. And he is young, so maybe as he gets older, he'll realize that this world is a cold, dark, fucking gritty noir place. But for now, he still believes in light. And he shares this moment with Mariko. It almost seems like a full circle moment because it was 14 years prior when he first met Mariko. But it's an emotional scene, and despite Alvito having the worst hairline I've ever seen.
Dude, the haircut is baffling. I can't look away from it when he gets on the screen. My first impression on this scene was, you can tell me if you were ever on the same wavelength when she's like, "I'm gonna confess," and then she get cut to Blackthorn. I'm like, oh no, she's gonna pick now to admit that she banged Blackthorn. Like, this is terrible. Um, but she didn't confess that, so I was actually kind of glad for the sake of the cause here. Alvito generally stands on what he's basically about. That's pretty much what you can say for it. He's genuinely been interested in Mariko's quote unquote salvation or her happiness the whole time. This can have its own drawbacks if you're pushing too much religion. I mean, the Spanish Inquisition wasn't too far away in history when this came to be, but he seems a lot more noble than I first thought. So I got to give the boy some credit on that one.
Yeah, agree there. This episode made me like Alvito a lot more than before. Okay, here we get the moment, and it's pretty dire. It's sunset and beautifully shot. All of this, by the way, I love the lighting. Just excellent
Yes.
work. There's HBO could definitely learn a thing or two from this in terms of how to do dark lighting, but I digress. So it's sunset. Mariko basically performs or is about to perform seppuku in front of everyone. As mentioned earlier, a lot of the women of the noble families are there to kind of support her and be there for her and witness this powerful moment. And Blackthorn has a full circle moment and he agrees to be Mariko's second because Kiyama obviously doesn't fucking show up. He's like, are you serious? I'm not here to be your second. So as Mariko's ready to do this, and she really is about to do this, Ishido busts in and basically is like, all right, we got approval from the council. He throws this little letter and says, yeah, you're allowed to leave. Here's your permits. Just relax. And then obviously on cue, Kiri in front of all of the women or the noble women says, well, if she gets to leave, can we expect to leave safely as well? And Ishido looks and says, yeah, of course. We're like, what is, go get your permits and you can leave. And he kind of mutters as he's walking away, you're really going to commit suicide over something like this? So he's trying to downplay this moment that was so pivotal, that it was the talk of the castle, all of this. Oh, and her son is there to watch as well, which is crazy to see her mother potentially take her own life. But Ishido comes in and saves Mariko for now and tries to downplay a moment that is so intense, right? What'd you think about that?
Incredibly gripping. It felt very similar to last episode's closing scene to me, and it felt like I thought she was dead for sure. You get the sense that maybe Lady Ochiba had a conversation with Ishido to get him to make this switch up in his strategy to kind of intervene here, based on the last conversation they had, because it doesn't seem like something that Ishido would come up with on his own, because he's kind of a stubborn dude in that sense. One thing that struck out as pretty interesting was that Blackthorn was like down to step right up, and he, even though he's not super familiar with it, even though he's not entirely cool with it, culturally he's still learning and he's still doing what he can, and he wants to be there for Mariko at all costs. He makes that line about hell being a place where he's going anyway, so he might as well. This reminds me of when he was taking care of the rock in the garden after the earthquake, after everything went down there, because he's in that readjustment period where he's now like coming back around to what's going on around him and being less selfish, which is cool. Um, Mariko, again, she's also, this is such a big scene because Mariko's denied the suicide that she's been chasing for like a while. So on that hand, like she's being held back even more so.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like all her life she's wanted this. She's been denied it, and now it's finally here, and it's terrifying, right? Um, but because she's saved, a lot of that tension is diffused, and she's kind of just, just sitting there pondering, and Blackthorn pulls up, and they just start, making love. So I just titled this scene "Intercourse." I don't really have any analysis about this. They just have intercourse.
Um, that's pretty fair, man. Let me ask you: did you think it was going to happen again before this episode, before the end of the season?
I thought it like so. I would say earlier in the season, I thought it was gonna like when they first smashed. I was like, oh, they're gonna smash way more down the line, and then I didn't. And then as the episodes went on, I was like, okay, they'll get one more. I didn't know it was gonna happen right here. I thought it was gonna happen when they won. I thought Buntaro was gonna like die in the battle or something, and then it was like Mariko and Blackthorn can just go at it. But I did not expect it to happen here.
Yeah, without risk of sounding too pretentious, almost like Shakespearean. I don't know if I'm just kind of speaking out of pocket right now, but like that just kind of feels like a forbidden love but tragic circumstances type deal.
Yeah, I know. I would agree with that. Episode is about to end, but then Yabu throws a fucking knuckle curve. Throws a knuckle curve. He is pretending to be hammered and getting smashed off Saki. And remember, I think their portion of the castle, all of Toranaga's group, is protected by Toranaga soldiers. So the Toranaga soldiers are very friendly with Yabu, obviously, and Yabu does basically a hey, look over there, and then just fucking kills the dude guarding one of the castle walls, and then he lets in these ninja, the Shinobi, and they just start murdering everyone, and they're trying to find and capture Mariko and get her out of there. And Yabu is always the guy playing two sides. He then pretends like he's the one running away from them. So this is going to lead to an escape scene. So basically, I guess what happened is that Ishido's request was for Yabu to probably let the ninja in, right? That was definitely Ishido's one request if Yabu wanted to be pardoned, essentially. So Yabu, obviously, being someone who was going to look out for himself, he took that deal, no hesitation, let everyone in, got a bunch of Toranaga's men killed, almost got Mariko captured, but then in the middle of it, instead of just standing aside and letting it happen, he starts running with Mariko and not Buntaro, with Blackthorn as well, and I think Kiri as well. So Kiri and Shizu are also with Mariko and Blackthorn. So Yabu kind of just joins them, and now all of a sudden goes from like, do you ever play football growing up and you had like the automatic quarterback? You remember that?
Yeah.
So it's like no matter what, I'm the QB for both teams. Like that's basically what Yabu was doing here, except he was like a receiver for both teams or a fucking kickoff guy. I don't know. It's fucking nuts. I had to rewatch this several times to kind of really understand what happened, but thoughts on that?
Yeah, he just gets caught up in whatever's going on around him, and I think he realizes how bad of a decision that he makes towards the end. He hits after he fakes drunk, he hits the guy with the hey, what's that over there before you stab him in the back. Like
Yeah.
he's on a horrible streak this entire time. So what when he smashes the thing on the ground and then shouts out like intruders, like oh my god, in here. Like that was such a slapstick Chris Farley move of him to try to pull off. Like but it worked. But I think once he realizes that like all these people are now like his responsibility and they may die, he sort of blends in with them more and then stays with them more. Otherwise, why would he do that? Like it seems like way too much of a risk for a guy who already earned his freedom.
Yep. And before we get into the final kind of part of this episode, So Ishido's plan here is he obviously can't let Mariko actually leave because the second she leaves, other noble family members are gonna leave, and soon the numbers advantage that he's gonna have is gonna dwindle because they're gonna leave, and then they're probably gonna unite with Toranaga. So he can't afford to let her leave, but he once again can't kill her in front of everyone because it could then cause a revolt in another way. So I guess his plan is to get her quietly capture her so she doesn't ever explicitly leave, but then obviously keep her alive probably so it doesn't look like he's murdered her, and then maybe use this intrusion as like a reason to shut down the castle again and then prevent everyone from leaving. Does that sound about right for what his plan is?
Yeah, I think so. I think that's the whole reason why Mariko was supposed to be captured and everybody else who they were trying to kill, they were just going to kill right off there. The lack of an identified assailant makes it easy to pin this on somebody else. It's that plausible deniability you were talking about earlier, where it's well, somebody broke in and did it. Could have been anybody. Could have been Toranaga's men. You never know, like that kind of deal. Even though they killed most of the people Toranaga would be sympathetic to,
Yeah.
this guy's going to craft whatever narrative he wants to. He's proven he's bad at a lot of things, but being a slime ball is now slowly creeping into his wheelhouse.
Yeah, and Yabu's now in a very interesting situation. But final sequence in this episode. So first of all, Blackthorne and Mariko are just openly sleeping together. Obviously, they definitely didn't expect anyone to come in the middle of the night, but for a brief moment there, four people knew about them fucking, you know? Four of the Shinobi or whoever was there. But Blackthorne keeps those pistols on him, and his gun game is fucking elite. And he's firing shots left and right. There's this fucking dope scene where he reaches his hand and pulls a ninja through the wall or close to the wall and then just shoots him through the wall. It's just so fucking dope. But everyone's running, you know, it's there. Everyone in those quarters are scrambling. So you got Ochiba, you got Shizu. I think you have some other noble women as well, from other families, and you have Blackthorne, Yabu, and Mariko, and they're all running away, and they end up kind of getting themselves locked in this cellar, and so they've surrounded themselves essentially, and you hear on the other side the Shinobi are lighting a fuse. They're getting ready to blow the door open, and Mariko decides to stand in front of the door, and she pledges that, you know, for the first time she utters her father's name and says, you know, like, she takes responsibility. So not for the first time, but, you know, she takes responsibility again for her father's name. She's proud of it, and she basically says, like, look, I'm dying for this cause in front of everyone. So there's a lot of witnesses there, and just gets blown to smithereens. And Yabu has gotten himself captured in that group, even though he's the one who let these intruders in. Blackthorne does manage to kill several before they get surrounded in the cellar, and Mariko, I think, might catch a body or two as well. But what'd you think about that ending scene? All of it. Mariko is now dead. She's I guess she avoided the suicide. She managed to kind of make up for her family name in a way, right? Like, she's like, if heaven is real, she's going to the pearly gates by all accounts.
Oh yeah, she's got a season pass for sure, at least. That was really just the perfect storm of events going on, right? I really liked how before she sacrificed, she gave that little smile over to Blackthorn as he was trying to move the stuff in front of the door in vain, because I think she still sees Blackthorn, or saw like the goodness within him that he was capable of, and that like he was genuinely trying to help everybody out when he was like able to. So that was a cool way for those two to end off on. Pretty heartbreaking death overall. You had a feeling it was going to happen just based on all the foreshadowing over the course of the season. Really cool to see her owning up to the family name, embracing the family name, even like we talked about earlier. Um, Yabu ending up in here is just the cruel twist of fate, but it does seem like her sacrifice is going to spare them in a way. So at least they have that. It was nice to see Blackthorn pull the strap out. Mariko showed some hands as well on the way through. Uh, where they pick up next episode is going to be a really interesting creative choice because I would honestly love to see it pick up just straight up right after the explosion, just to get right after the aftermath. No time gap in between.
Yeah, I want that action from beginning till end. 120-minute episode. That's what I want. Probably not gonna happen, but give me 105 minutes, a legit
Yeah.
105 minutes, and I'll be. Actually, wait, am I saying 105?
Yeah.
I mean 65 minutes. Jesus, dude.
Hey, man, I was like, yeah, he's right.
I've been a liability during this entire stream, and we're gonna do it again in 5 minutes. All right. Well, hey, final thoughts, David, before I end this.
I have not been this excited for a finale in a very long time.
Yeah, this show is fucking awesome. We'll be back with episode 10. Thank you for watching. Thanks for bearing with me. I'm running on absolute fumes, but we're about to take 5 minutes off and stream the Sympathizer episode 1. If you're watching this on replay, go watch our Sympathizer replay. Catch y'all later.
Later.